I got like my two least favorite wide receivers in this class on my team
Mm,
now.
that sucks.
So that's all right.
Well, maybe if one
One
of them
dollar
pops,
short
you
of
can change trade him real fast.
yeah, and it is what it is, man. So one bid late on Corley and $1 short on
Mm,
McMillan. So
that sucked,
my
man.
two faves. But
I saw
it's
that
all right,
Corley
man.
happen. I was like, damn, fuck, that sucks.
Yeah, well, I trade up to the 3-4 just because the
Thought it
way
was
things
good.
were going. I was like, well, it's not going to be there at the 3-6, so might as
Hmm.
well, whatever, give up a 2026 third.
Hmm.
Yeah, Danny was getting crazy. And fucking Randy, dude, that guy, he was a little Randy for some trades this past week.
I took a lease out on your heart. I took a lease out on your heart. Can I at least have fun? Can I at least have fun? Can I at least have fun?
Welcome back, everybody. We are Road Rep Research. You are the audience, and together we are on a quest for Dynasty Domination. How's it going over there, Daniel?
Good, dude. I mean, seriously, it's going great. Got one
Good.
rookie draft done.
Yeah, we do. We
Got
do.
a million more on the horizon.
Yep, we got our
What about
for the belt league draft done. We're gonna cover that I think next week. We're gonna get kind of more in depth. I'm feeling pretty good. Had 6 picks. I know Daniel got some
yeah.
guys that he's fairly excited about.
Yeah, I had one pick
Hmm.
and it went well, but then my other pick I traded
And
to get
got
my boy.
got him back. He's back
Yeah,
home,
buddy.
Terry. Scary
Terry, I was
Terry, back
like
where he belongs.
80% dynasty rostering, 4 out
Hmm.
of 5, I think, of my leagues. I got Terry. So
Hey man.
love never wavers.
That's awesome. Well, now he's got a great passer, but that's not
Hey,
what we're here to talk about today. We're not even here to talk about offense
not
today
even.
because we are diving deep and exploring the world of IDP fantasy football and specifically dynasty fantasy football. So this is we are not experts. We
Nope.
try to make that clear. And we've done one season of an IDP, or I've done one season of an IDP dynasty. You've done a couple IDP leagues, but not a dynasty, correct?
Yeah, I've done some redraft IDP, but it was
Hmm.
like a while ago. But yeah, I picked up a squad that got dropped
Hmm.
last year.
Yep.
Pretty exciting. I just judging from the startup draft, I think I've already made more roster moves than the guy I got the team from. So,
Oh,
you
gotcha.
know,
Oh,
breathe a
geez.
little life and see how that goes. See how it goes.
Yeah.
Solid squad. Solid squad. I'm pumped, man.
No, yeah, you both we had two people join that league. Kind of happens with early dynasty leagues, so if that happens to yours, don't get scared, just find some new people. It usually
That's
works
right.
out.
Trade up.
But yeah, so you took those teams over. They were both pretty decent. And so I'm excited to get this going. But if you don't know what IDP is and you're confused about what we've been saying, it's individual defensive player. So instead of having a team defense, you have players. So like in our league, we start two defensive linemen, two linebackers, two defensive backs, and then two flex players on the defense. And I think we might have even voted to increase that. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, so we're gonna basically get into that from a dynasty perspective. We're gonna kind of just I'm gonna throw a bunch of numbers at you at first, so please be ready to digest that. I'm gonna make it as digestible as possible, but I kind of want to go through some IDP stuff. But then we're gonna get into our top five positional ranking for Dynasty Fantasy IDP rookie drafts, because we have
Oh,
ours coming up in 2 days. So
yeah.
anything you want to throw out before I crack into this?
No, man. I got excited. I forgot to ask you how you're doing, Christian. Just
Oh,
wanted to know.
I'm good, man. I'm excited. I think I just talked over you, is what it was. I think you remembered. I was
Nah.
just rude.
Who's driving the bus? Who's driving?
But
All
I'm
right,
good,
man.
man. I'm
Well,
excited.
I'm
S-
pumped to hit this. You're about to drop some major knowledge on these people. So
I hope so. I hope it's not nonsense. So, but before we get into it, I did want to get into some important red tape that's going to kind of skew our rankings just a teensy bit. Our scoring is different from what is considered standard IDP scoring. There's not really a standard, there's not enough leagues for it, it seems like. But I just wanted to go over the differences because ours is a little more high scoring. So we've got 6 point sacks compared to the usual 4.5. We have a point and a half solo tackles versus 1.4, so not crazy, but that can add up. 1 point assisted tackle versus point 0.7. So that's a pretty, doesn't sound like a lot, but also pretty significant. And then we also do 1 point per QB hit instead of half a point. So that's a pretty big jump as well.
Yeah.
So our scoring, like reel us in a little bit, especially when it comes to these positional comparisons that I'm going to get at the end of this, because our guys score just a teensy little bit more. Than most IDP leagues, especially in the sacks. We really like them sacks around our parts. So
Oof.
that out of the way, we're gonna get into some positional top tens from last year because I think it's really important to kind of just see what these players are worth, especially from a dynasty rookie draft perspective. So we're separating it into four different positions. We've got D line, defensive back, linebacker, and then I'm gonna separate edge, which on sleeper they have these players that are D line slash linebacker. So like that's what I'm gonna consider edge. And if you look at the sleeper rookies right now, there aren't any of those guys, and they're gonna get separated into that at some point. So the guys we rank later, we're just projecting to be edges. But I think it's important to separate edges because, like, if you put the D line into a top 10, six of those guys are edge players. So it's completely skews it. But then they also go into the linebacker core, and there's only three edge players there. But they skew like the tackle numbers when you're trying to look at the linebackers and stuff to see, like, oh, how many tackles get you into the top 10 or whatever. These edge players don't get as many, but then they catch up with the sacks. So I feel like they need to be separated because um like getting into the pre or just like quickly that pre top 10 it was or pre separated top 10 of the D line. It's literally edge, one D lineman, edge, D line, edge, so it just, I don't know, they need to be kind of separated to me. And all four of the defensive linemen that were in that, it was like Miles Garrett, uh, Aiden Hutchinson, Mason Crosby, and then Trey Hendrickson. So like all pretty bona fide
Badass.
superstars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then you get into the linebackers, and there's a huge like disparity of edges all of a sudden because there's only three edges, but they skew the tackle numbers from an average of 134 to, or for, sorry, from 159 without edges to 134 with edges. So it kind of like that's a 20-30 tackle difference. So it just felt like separating them out was important. So again, with all that noted, the top 10 edge players from last season in our league, we had 10th was Andrew Van Ginkel with 200 points. Harold Landry was ninth with 204. Jonathan Grenard at 206 was eighth. Uh, oh my goodness, I forgot this man's name. Granderson with 208 was seven. Bradley Chubb was 236 with the Dolphins. Micah Parsons at 247 was fifth. And then we had Josh Allen with the Jaguars at 275. So we're trying to get pretty high up here. Daniil
Yeah.
Hunter at 295 at
Whew.
three. Khalil Mack at 314. And then we had TJ Watt with an astounding 337 points, which puts him above the highest scoring tight end and would put him like in the top five quarterbacks and then top four running backs and stuff. So pretty
Wow.
significant numbers there. All right. So what this meant to me was if you have an edge player, you need to start them on the defensive line because they vastly kind of outweigh that defensive line ability to score, but they're not strong enough to kind of compete with the linebackers. So you don't want to start them in that linebacker spot. And for instance, what I mean, Andrew Van Ginkel was 10th on the edge list, but he was 39th on the linebacker all-inclusive list. So like he's 10th in edge, but there's a huge gap of linebackers that score more than that 10th edge player. So it's like these edge superstars are really, really worth it. But then once they kind of get into the nines and tens, they kind of fall off a little bit. And they definitely, you don't want to be starting them over your linebackers, but find a way to work them into that defensive line spot. Speaking of the defensive line, getting into the top 10 here, we had Denico Autry at 199. We had Zyler at 216, Metabuke at 216 as well. Nick Bosa at 221, so a little bit farther down there. Montez Sweat at 225 at sixth. DeForest Buckner starting our top five at 231. Miles Garrett at 234 was fourth. Trey Henderson at 237 was third. Aiden Hutchinson at 241, and then Max Crosby at 297. Only one of the players I just named had less than 10 sacks. The average sacks was 12 and a half or 12.6. So it's just like these defensive linemen, you have to go for guys that get sacks, or they're just not going to score enough points for you. Because we're already talking about Autry at 199. That's kind of not doing it, already. That's not a high total for the end of the year. And he had 10 sacks. The only guy that didn't was Buckner, and he averaged about 30 to 40 more tackles than everybody else.
Right.
So he was just kind of making up that difference. Well, him and Max Crosby, because Max Crosby is a beast, and that's why he was on top. But they both had like an average of 30 to 40 more tackles. So there's a big payoff to me for these like superstar defensive linemen, like a Crosby, a Garrett, a Hutchinson. But then there's just a huge drop off, kind of like tight ends. I kind of relate the defensive linemen to the tight ends of the defensive world. So then getting into our linebackers, this is where the bread and butter is to me of the IDP. Like you got to have these linebackers. We had Robert Spillane 10th at 264, so that was 10th. So that's
Ooh.
a big jump from everybody else. Fred Warner at 274, Zaire Franklin at 275, Alex Singleton at 276, Quincy Williams 278 was sixth, and then we had Terrell Edwards 285 at fifth. And then Bobby Wagner, 292, still kicking around at fourth. Bobby Okereke at third with 292 as well. And then Terrell Bernard, rookie, massive pickup. If you grabbed him in IDP leagues, Terrell Bernard, Buffalo Bills was 295 at second. And then Foye Aluakon was at 309. And I mean, it's just tackles. That's what matters here. Of the top 10, these guys averaged 157.4 tackles. So that is 100% where they're getting their points. And you're thinking like, oh, is there a huge advantage for like a guy that gets a lot of interceptions or pass coverage or whatever? These guys average 1.7 interceptions. So it's not like they're maybe getting two, So it doesn't seem like a big enough goal for you to be reaching for these guys that are like dominant in coverage, but maybe not the best tacklers. So just go for tackles, and kind of the same thing with the defensive backs. Because getting into the top 10 here, we had Julian Love, free safety, 214. We had Dax Hill, I believe. Sorry, free safety, 217. Xavier McKinney, strong safety, 223, was eighth. John Metellus, Nickelback, 224. I think his first name's John. I could have screwed that up. Kyle Hamilton, sixth, was another safety, 227. Derwin James, same score, started our top five. And then Deron Bland just had a crazy year this year. So he pops off at 232, is our only true corner on the board. And then Cameron Bynum was free safety, 240. He was third. Jesse Bates, also a free safety, 268, was second. And then Antoine Winfield, also free safety at 300 points for a defensive back. So, like these guys, again, I feel like the top tier guys can really help your roster out. Like the 300 points out of a free safety is amazing. And for the defensive packs, I mean, safety's king. There were 5 free safeties in this top 10 and 3 strong safeties. So we're talking about 8 of the guys. And then, like I said, one of them was Derod Bland with an absolutely absurd 9 interceptions.
No.
So
Yeah.
like that's not really achievable. And then there was one nickelback, and all these guys averaged 111 tackles, which isn't that's a lot for a defensive back. So like to me, you really like there's no point in going for these true cover corners usually. They're just not going to do it. You need to grab all the safeties you can. So that was our top 10.
Mm.
But my final notes on the top 10, if you were to take just the top 10 defensive players, like like for a flex spot, basically. There were five pure linebackers, three edge players, one defensive back was Anton Winfield, and one defensive lineman was Max Crosby. So for those flex spots, it really does need to be edge or linebackers, and almost presumably it needs to be linebackers because you just got to find those guys that are going to eat up those tackles and just rack you up a bunch of points. So before I move on to my next bit of information, do you have any takeaways or thoughts about what I just did? I kind of just spewed it at you.
No, no, it all kind of I dug through a lot of that, so
Mhm.
I was pretty excited just trying to wrap my head around the scoring and yeah,
Mhm.
like you're saying, like tackles like the sexiest names aren't, you want guys getting picks and you want guys getting sacks and
Mhm.
everything. So just to see like the quantity over the kind of the specialty stats is
Mhm.
that's interesting to keep an eye on that. But yeah, what how many pick six did Jerome Bland have? Like
Oh
that's
yeah,
I know he
I
had a
didn't
bunch
even
of
do pick
picks, but it's
sixes,
a
but
bunch of touchdowns in there
yeah.
too. So yeah, that's he I mean, that's incredible. Not
Yeah,
sustainable at
what an
all.
awesome season. But yeah, he's not
That's
going to do
cool.
that over and over again, you know.
Hmm.
Not enough to try to bank a roster on it.
No.
So, how do these positions stack up against offensive positions? I think that is an incredibly important question because when you're going into a rookie draft, how do you value these guys? When do you start taking these guys? And so what I did, couple different things here to get into it before we get into our top five. I took the average total points of the top 10 of every position, and then I put that in like a top eight ranking to see kind of like the average top 10 points. So I'm gonna let you know the position and then the average points of their top 10. Starting at eight, surprisingly, is tight ends with an average score of
Oh yeah.
212. So they are the worst in terms of average score. Seventh was D line with 231. So a pretty big jump there, like a 20-point jump, basically. Sixth was defensive back with 237. Fifth was edge with 252. And then just once again, kind of driving this point home, the linebacker point. They're fourth, so they're still behind your core offensive players, but they had an average score of 284. So 32 points higher than your edge players. So it's just linebackers are king, man. Third was running back at 294. Second was quarterback at 330. And then they were actually tied with the wide receivers at
Mm.
330. So I gave a slight love to the wide receiver position there, so they're first. But yeah, so again, kind of driving that further point home, that linebackers are really what you need to be targeting. And then I wanted to do the ranges of to see kind of the drop off from first to 10th. So I took the score of first minus the score of last from every position. And then I also did edge versus linebacker and edge versus D line just to kind of further drive that point home. So
Okay.
the difference from first to 10th for QBs was 127 points. It's a pretty big jump, but
Yep.
not as big as the jump for running backs, which was 166. But that needs a little bit of a caveat because Christian McCaffrey is just absolutely fucking ridiculous
Yeah.
because the difference from second to 10th was only 58. So not as
Okay.
big of a gap. Christian McCaffrey just makes this super wide. Kind of the same, not the same thing in the receiver room because there's a lot of guys up at the top, but the receiver range was 144. The tight end range was 94. And then this is where I was kind of talking about where the edge drops off pretty quickly too. The difference from first to 10th in edge was 137. So a pretty significant drop off from the top guys to the bottom of the top 10 there.
Okay.
For D linemen, it was 98. So pretty tight, but not huge. Linebackers, this was crazy to me. Linebackers have the smallest range of 45. So it really just speaks to like they're just racking up these tackles and like kind of staying with all in that same range. So it really is fine to grab one of these consistent, maybe not like you're saying, like not superstar name guys just to fill out your roster. The range for defensive backs was 86. And then just to further drive home my point of starting your edges in the defensive line spot, the range from the top edge player to the bottom linebacker was 73, and the range from the top edge player to the bottom defensive lineman was 138.
Oh,
So,
good Lord.
yeah, almost double.
So it's
Um,
like, you don't need defensive linemen on your roster.
Pretty much. I mean, if you can get one of the guys in the startup draft, if you love a Miles Garrett or you love a Max Crosby or somebody like
Yeah,
that, you can
go
get those
top
guys,
notch.
go
Hmm.
for it. But other than that, get these edge guys and throw them in that defensive line spot because it just really doesn't seem worth it. Um, and then yeah, if you have flex spots, those should be predominantly linebackers, in my opinion.
Okay. So this is good info for, I mean, especially I feel like I just tricked you into teaching me exactly how to win,
I got
and
you, dog. Hey,
appreciate
I
it.
just want rough draft research to come home with gold. As
You
long as
know
one
it,
of us
dude.
gets it.
Hey, I'm champion in two years
Yeah.
running, dude. You
Yeah.
gotta you gotta take the load this year, man.
I
It's
mean,
all
we
you.
had the perfect scenario. We had the RDR championship last year. I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
win, but
Oh
we
yeah.
won, you know?
But who, yeah, I mean, you got the Reed jersey, so even when you lose, you win
That's
sometimes.
true. 100%.
Oh.
All
Oof.
righty. So, with
That's
all of that, hopefully you guys were able to digest all of that condensed information. It was a lot of numbers. I hope it wasn't too dry and hope it was actually informational.
it was
But
good.
now we're gonna get good. I'm glad.
So, first review, thumbs up, man.
Cool. But now we're gonna get into what you guys are really here for, and that is our top five IDP rookie rankings for each position. So
Oof.
we're gonna start off with our edge players. So again, Sleeper has not separated these guys yet. They are just guys that I think will be ending up as the dual kind of D-line linebacker hybrid position that we're going to call edge. So I think we should go from bottom up. I've been talking
Oh,
a lot. Do you want to start or do you want me to take it?
well, you know what? I guess I'll start with my
Okay.
number five guy.
Mm,
Um, And it just so happens that we had five first round NFL draft picks
hmm
going off. So for the edge position, which is kind of rare when you consider how this whole draft went offense all the
hmm
way.
Yeah,
So it just tells you how important the edge position is out there,
always.
you
Yep.
know. It's where they're like, we don't need D linemen according to RDR. We're just gonna take all the edges. But I'm putting Darius Robinson,
Mm,
Arizona Cardinal, coming out of the University of Missouri. It's
hmm
right around 300 pounds, 6'5".
Yep.
But I got to tell you, I'm shocked he had 5 years with Missouri and he's only 22 and a half years old. I'm like little surprised to see that he spent that much time there. But I mean, he's slated as like the starter right now
hmm
for them. But I think he probably would be ranked higher for most people, maybe even you. Um, but I looked at the grades and I'm not seeing him be as hot as some of these other guys. There's some of these other fellas I'm pretty excited about, but I don't know. Darius Robinson, aggressive guy. I think he's got plenty of potential. Got him at five.
I actually have him right at five as well.
Okay.
So no, I'm right there with you. He is projected day one starter, just like you were saying. I'm kind of a little worried just because it was like a 1 year breakout with 5 years at Missouri. He had
Yeah.
nine of his 14 total sacks were in this last season. So that's a little worrisome. But when I was watching him getting ready for the draft, because he obviously was a first round pick, and if you watch the live stream, you saw me compare him
Ooh.
to Zadarius Smith in the
Okay.
way he aggressively plays. So I do like him. I kind of, you know, in fantasy, like with the offense, I kind of trust my own gut. I'm kind of trusting a lot of um the teams that I like as I dive into the IDP. And so like teams that I trust and the Cardinals not necessarily being one of them,
No.
maybe that knocks him down a little bit. But I do like him and I do think he's obviously going to start right away, which gets him in the top five for me as well. Um, do you wanna alternate or do you wanna just take it? You wanna take
Y-
four?
You know what? I mean, Let me do it. Yeah,
Okay, go for
let's
it.
just go for it. Let's see how it goes. Um, we can because I don't think we're gonna be. I mean, we can't be one for one the whole time, right? So
Probably
I've
not.
Jared Verse.
Okay.
Okay, at number four. So yeah, again, first round pick. He went 19th overall, and he went to the Chargers,
Mm.
which there's a lot new with the Chargers,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
he's also
Oh,
slated to be.
oh, he went to the Rams.
Oh, the Rams. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I meant.
Los Angeles.
The other Los Angeles team. Thank you. Yeah, he went to the Rams. Man, their logos are very too similar, and it freaks me out. Same colors and
Same
everything.
colors, everything. Yeah, it's weird.
Okay, so he goes to the Rams. So um, I think that last year they did really well with kind of unknown rookies coming
Hmm.
out. They had Kobe Turner and
Hmm.
then Byron Young. There's
Hmm.
like some of the more higher performing rookies in IDP. In my vast research, I see that rookies probably aren't really the bread and butter. You kind of got to camp out on these guys.
Hmm.
So to see some guys pop in that defense makes me trust them, and I'm pretty pumped about him. He came out with 11 sacks last year out of Florida State,
Hmm.
and I think he's going to slot in that defense and help them continue what they're doing. But I mean, what are you going to say? The guy's kind of a beast. Great draft capital. They obviously love him.
Hmm.
Um, these guys are all like the same size. Or like he's 260, 6'4". Yeah, when we get into linebackers, it's ridiculous how narrow the spread of like the entire linebacker
Oh
core at
yeah.
the combine was. It's like these guys all weigh the exact same
Yeah,
thing.
they're
They're
like the
all the same height.
same build. Yeah, it's weird.
It freaks me
Um,
out.
yeah, so I like Jared Verse. I actually have him at third.
Okay,
So
okay.
I'll get into my fourth guy here, and then I'll kind of follow you. You know what? I'll just get into Jared first now. So
Yeah,
yeah,
go
I'm
for
with
it.
you. He's a powerful, like dominant rusher at times. I think it's like he's obviously projected to start, but there, like you mentioned, Kobe Turner and then Byron Young out there. There's some like there's a lot of like people out there, and I think he does slot right in. So I think that's going to be nice. It just is a little crowded, so like it may take a minute for him to start getting the sacks right away. But I do think he's going to have potentially like a better year than Turner because Dallas Turner, that is,
Hmm.
rookie year, because he just is projected to be right in there and be learning from these other guys and I do think he's going to affect the pass a lot for LA, and I think it was a great pick. So I actually have him at third, and then getting into my fourth guy, I got Chop Robinson here,
Okay.
with the Dolphins, first round pick, 21st overall out of Penn State. He's got huge upside. He's a crazy athlete, and he's super young. But to me, like the reason I have him at four, and I actually have a tier break between three and four. I've got tier breaks for all my rankings here.
What?
And so I've got a tier break between three and four. And so Chop Robinson is the leader of that. But to me, he's a project a little bit already. And he's projected rotational at first because Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are right in front of him on the depth chart. So I think he's
Sure.
going to get less time than these other guys. Which to me, like IDP guys, you're already taking later, probably in the rookie draft, like starting in the second round for superstars, probably is what
Mhm.
I'm imagining to happen anyway. And so to me, like it pushes him down because you got to wait for that rookie season. But I do think he has a tremendous upside and he's a home run swing.
Well, so I have him at
Okay.
number three. And the reason for that is just the consistency between his sophomore and his junior year. His PFF grades were above
Hmm.
90, pretty high, not
Hmm.
only in 23, but also in 2022. So just to have the continuity and like just 2 years of being aggressive, it leaves less of a wild card. Um, Obviously, yeah, the depth chart's a different deal. He's not
Hmm.
starting like some of these other guys are, but I'm almost discounting the first year, like for pretty much all these edge guys. I think they're going to need to warm up to the league. So maybe by the time they're all firing on all cylinders, there's no reason for him not to be a contender with the rest of these guys. It's basically where I'm at. But
Mm.
I like him, man. I kind of like this game and just seeing that consistent production. Even though the sack numbers, he only had 10 sacks in three
Hmm.
years, and that's not really his game, but he definitely is a game a stopper. Just
Yeah.
say the word game one more time.
No, I'm with you. And maybe that's the drawback to me is, and maybe the numbers don't do him justice.
Mm,
I haven't watched enough of him, I'm sure. But yeah, that scares me a little from the edge. You're looking for those guys that would get sacks. That's how you're gonna rank up that board, especially in our league. So that's
sure.
kind of where I'm a little worried, whereas these other guys have a little bit more sacks. But I'm with you. It's a good landing spot because eventually, like potentially, Jalen Phillips is on the way out. Who knows how they're gonna do, former first round pick.
Mm.
But who knows? But I like him as a piece there. I just kind of like Jared Verse a little better in LA.
All right, I'm with you. In LA Rams, that
Yep.
is. But all right, so number two, Dallas Turner,
Yep. I also have
Minnesota.
Dallas Turner here at number two.
Yeah, that feels, I mean, that feels good. They've got some big shoes to fill, but he's still
Hmm.
not slated as a starter.
Hmm.
But I think he's going to get good rotation right out the gate. I mean, he
Hmm.
is 17th pick.
Hmm.
Was he the third defensive player off the board?
He might have been the second.
Byron Murphy went at 16.
Oh, that's right. So yeah, then third.
So I think he's got a ton of potential. We keep talking about sack numbers, and
Hmm.
he got 11 sacks. I mean,
Hmm.
that's more than Chop had his entire collegiate career. So, I mean, it's just a high performer, performing superstar, and it was a coin flip between him and Latu. But I think that Turner's going to have a great time in Minnesota, and I don't know, man. I think it's going to be kind of a toss up. I did give him the number two spot. Did you have him at two or
Yeah, I had him at two as well. I like
okay?
the landing spot a lot. Obviously they're bringing him in to at some point replace Daniel Hunter.
Right.
And we've seen what we Daniel Hunter can do. And you're kind of hoping for the same kind of upside out of Turner, and then the Blind Flores defense, which was really successful last
Yeah,
year. Hopefully that continues.
it will.
Well, hopefully not for a
I mean,
Packers
it's
fan, I guess.
Flores, dude. You can't hate on Flores. The
Oh, I'm
guy's
not hating at
badass.
all. No, I think it will be. I just hope it isn't, because I don't want the Vikings to
For
be
yeah,
good, I
they
guess.
can
But
win like half of their games
yeah,
against
there you
Green
go.
Bay. Yeah,
Exactly. Well,
just
no, not
call. Yeah.
against Green Bay. No, they can win half their games, but
Oh,
not against
just
Green Bay.
just lose those two. Gotcha.
Anyway, but yeah, I like Dallas Turner a lot. He's behind Van Ginkel right now, who obviously I just mentioned is a top 10 or was a top 10 overall edge player last year in terms of IDP fantasy.
Right.
But I think he kind of takes that rollover probably closer to the end of the year, or maybe not, maybe midway through the season. So I liked Dallas Turner a lot coming out of the draft, but I didn't like him as much as Laiatu Latu, who the Colts took. And, he's got the big injury risk, obviously, the medical retirement and then coming back, but he played 2 seasons and had 27 sacks in those two
Hmm.
seasons, which is just crazy with UCLA. And he's a day one starter for that Colts defense, and I just
Yeah.
love him. I'm gonna be trying to get him. He's a guy I would take in the second round. I kind of see him as like a defensive rookie of the year candidate, and I know that's easy to say because like, oh, he was the first defensive player taken, but he was my favorite edge player coming out of the draft, regardless of where he was gonna get taken. And I do tend to like the Colts players that they bring in, so we'll see. But I love him. I'm gonna be trying to get him in our draft. And hopefully not everybody steals this from me now because I'm gonna put this out on Friday. So come at me, son.
Oh fuck. He's calling his shots, guys. Oh man, yeah, there's no reason not to like him. I think without the injury, we're talking probably I mean, I can't even with this fucking draft class, but without the injury, he has to be a top 10
I would
draft
say,
pick.
yeah.
I mean, he went at 15th with,
Hmm.
with
With a massive
obvious.
injury, yeah.
Right, but I mean, it's as if that was water under the bridge. It did not slow him down at all. And
Hmm.
like you're saying, in Indianapolis, he's going to be relied upon pretty heavily. I think that defense is on the way up. You got Zaire Franklin. I love that, but they got some older guys on that front four, and so they're going to need a blast of youth for him, and I think he's going to be on the field more than a lot of other guys. So I'm looking for him to get in there and make a name for himself, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm 100% with you. I think he could start off pretty hot and kind of change your team. I think year one, I really do. Like I'm
Yeah.
with you that maybe these guys are going to take a little bit of time to heat up, but I think he could really be effective in year one with the
Hmm.
amount of time he's going to get. So moving on to the linebackers, so the meat of the draft, if you will. Um, so my fifth overall linebacker here. There were a few names. This might be the only position I throw out some honorable mentions because I had a hard time here.
Mm.
I went with Trevin Wallace, third round pick, eighth overall pick of the third round to the Carolina Panthers. Um, I liked his game. He's a good tackler, 94 tackles in the past two seasons. And Shaq Thompson is aging out. He's already 30. And so he could slide right into there, and that's pretty decent draft capital from a team that was wheeling and dealing trying to rebuild this team. Um, I have more faith in some of the teams that drafted guys in front of him, but I do like him. And he's pretty young, 21.2. So there's time for him to develop. I don't know that I would. It'd be tough for me to draft him. Maybe I'd want like a 5 round rookie draft, and I grab him like in the late fourth or fifth. But I do like him. I think that just kind of depends on how long you can wait for a linebacker. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, I guess I'm with you there. Um, let's see. I Wallace, I've got him third.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I really liked him. I don't know. I can't quantify it. That was just my gut feel on him. I
Cool.
like him a lot, but like you're saying, anything could happen. There's a lot of needs on that Carolina team, so he could easily get in and be a difference maker day one. So
Hmm.
looking for that to happen. My fifth, I've got Baltimore's a Adias Isaac.
Okay.
And I liked him. I felt like he had pretty good size. He's like 250, 6'4". It's kind of a beefy ass linebacker. He came out with 9 sacks and I thought he looked pretty healthy, man. I think he's out of Notre Dame, and I don't know. He fit as number five for me, so
Okay.
I'm all in on him.
Yeah, I mean the Ravens have shown a knack for drafting really good at the linebacker, or really well at the linebacker position. A little
Yeah,
bit crowded in front of him, but
yeah,
like
definitely.
eventually he could make if he makes it out on the field, he could be a role player for you for sure.
Penn
Um,
State, Penn State.
Penn State, gotcha. So I for my number four, I've got Peyton Wilson. Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker.
Okay.
He was a third round pick out of NC State, uh, 34th pick of the third round. Um, this guy has massive injury problems, so he's super risky. He doesn't have an ACL on one of his knees. He has shoulder issues. He had another thing that now I can't remember. But to me, he has massive upside. Like people were talking about him potentially being a first round pick without all the injuries, and now he's got Landon Roberts in front of him and Patrick Queen on the other side of the inside linebacking core with the Steelers 3-4 there.
Yeah.
And he's just a fast, instinctual player. He has super quick reactions. He had 159 tackles over the past two seasons. So I just really, really liked his game. He's a bit older, which you don't love for Dynasty, but I do think he's like a home run swing that I'm willing to take a chance on.
All right, man. He didn't make my top
Oh,
five.
okay.
So for for we'll have to revisit this conversation.
Yeah, we will.
But all right, I've got at number four, I've got Maurice Liufo
Okay.
from the Cowboys. He was the 24th pick in the third round, and he's a little smaller, 6'2",
Hmm.
234. But man, with the Leighton Vander Esch going out the door and kind of the needs that the Cowboys have, I feel like he's going to get in there. They don't have him slated as a starter. They brought in Eric Hendricks, but
Hmm.
I think that, it's just a matter of time before this guy gets on the field. He's the linebacker out of Notre Dame that I was enjoying, and I don't know, man. I think he's got a potential to get early rotation and kind of establish himself, and I'm excited to see what he can do. Is he on your list?
He's not.
Oh,
He's an
jeez.
honorable mention on
Okay,
mine
okay.
as well. So no,
I'll
I did
take it.
like him, and you're right. The Dallas Cowboys hole there. He could find playing time early, and that's
Mhm.
why I had him on there. But I kind of fell a little bit in love. So here's my first tier break. There's actually two tier breaks in the linebacker room.
Oh,
And my first one is after Peyton Wilson, and this is Tyrese Knight, the Seattle Seahawks fourth round pick, 18th pick out of UTEP.
okay.
He just a tremendously massive amount of tackles. In 3 seasons as a starter, he had 261 tackles. He had 117 this past season, which is just an insane amount. Like these other guys are getting like 60, 70, and that's like really good. And the only person in front of him on the depth chart is Tyrell Dotson, which is like a free agent pickup from Buffalo, who presumably lost his job to Terrell Bernard last year. So I just think there's room for that to happen to the poor guy again, where Tyrese Knight comes in here and just takes his job, and the guy just has a nose for tackles. Like he was so fun to watch, and I this is kind of like maybe one of my out there picks or whatever because he's a fourth rounder. But I really liked his game, and I like the landing spot with Seattle.
Yeah, he's got one of the higher snap counts out of all these guys too. So he was on the field a lot, and that's kind
Hmm.
of one of the things I considered because you think of how rotational defense can be, especially linebacker, D line positions. So
Hmm.
the fact that he's out there grinding and making it happen, I like it, dude. He's not on my list, but he was one guy that was fighting to get in on it. So,
Cool, cool, cool.
but yeah, and then Wallace was my number three. So.
Okay,
So
perfect.
going
So
to,
I'll
yeah,
get
go.
into my number two. So this was another tier break. So I kind of had Tyrese
Okay.
in a tier on his own,
Yep.
and then my other two down there. So I've got Junior Colson as my number two here, Los Angeles Chargers, third round pick, fifth pick of that round. I think he's going to end up wearing the green dot for the Chargers. He has that Harbaugh connection. So Jim Harbaugh absolutely loves this kid if you wanted to draft him. He had an 88.1 average tackling grade over the past 2 seasons, 128 tackles over that same span. I just think he's a really smart player, and he's solid. Like he's just gonna like we talk about just guys that eat up tackles. I think he can absolutely do that at the next level. He kind of has to get. I think he's technically not listed as a starter right now, but I don't think it'll take him very long to maybe like 1 season to not be the full-time starter after Perriman is gone. But I like Junior Colson a lot, and I think the Hardball connection makes it a really juicy pickup.
Yeah, he's getting what the kids are calling the Lad McConkey bump for sure. So just going to the Chargers and a needy team and the new regime and having that, connection with the coach. Yeah, this is gonna be a guy that you want to pick up
Mhm.
if he's, I don't know where, I have no clue, but if he's there in the fourth, baby,
Oh, for sure.
definitely
Oh, yeah.
definitely grabbing him. I probably won't get so lucky, but I don't know. Obviously, we probably have the same number one, right? Out of
Ye-
Texas A&M.
Yeah, Texas A&M, and it may be a little bit of a homer pick, but Edgerrin Cooper, Green Bay Packers, was the first linebacker off the board. He was a second round pick, 13th overall. I think part of this is I think Quay Walker may not get a second contract with the Packers. It's not that I don't think he's been good. I think he's been great, but I could just see them maybe not wanting to spend that much at that position and investing another second round pick so early after investing a first round pick. Maybe who knows, maybe they both stay there for a while, but Edgerrin Cooper's just a high-end linebacker athlete. He's so fast. There was this one time he was spying the quarterback. I can't remember what team it was against. I was watching this for the draft, but he cleared like 10 yards in like an instant to make sure he didn't sneak out around him and take it off running. He's an excellent blitzer. He had the number one sack number for all linebackers this year with 10, and he also had 108 tackles over the past 2 seasons.
Mm.
The defensive coordinator in Green Bay is talking about attacking our new guy, Jeff Hafley, and he is talking about being aggressive and going after the ball, and that fits right into what Cooper does. And I'm just really excited about this pick, and he's going to be on the field day one as well, in that rotation. So,
Yeah, from what I could tell, he's the only, projected day one starter out of all the rookie
mhm,
linebackers. So in a class where, you didn't really see, he was the only guy that went before the third round in the linebacker group. So
mhm,
that gives him an easy bump. He weighs about 230. I got to tell you, every single linebacker at the combine weighed within a 12-pound
that's
grouping.
insane.
Like, what the hell, man? They're like, it's almost like they just sort them, They're like, oh,
Hmm.
nope, you're a linebacker. They're like, I really want to play running back. And they're like,
Too
well,
bad.
if you weigh 215, maybe, but you weigh
Oh,
228, so you're
you're
over there.
15 too heavy. Sorry.
Yep. Sorry, pal. You're too tall. Get out of here. But now the linebacker class is like sneaky interesting. It was the
Hmm.
position I had the hardest time putting together top five because, there were like eight or more guys that I could
Hmm.
have made an argument for. So,
Yeah,
well,
yeah. I can't say his name. The Dallas Cowboys kid and the Ravens kid that you mentioned were
yeah,
two that I were struggling to get in there. And I also had Cedric Gay with the Tennessee Titans as another name that I was looking at. So yeah, this
yeah,
linebacker core is tasty. And as we said, man, those linebackers, you need to grab snatch them up. So if you can get
that's
your
right.
hands on some of these guys, especially in deeper leagues and deeper drafts, you should go for it. Um, Getting into the defensive line, I think this will be a little quicker because I think there's only like two of these guys I would actually draft, to be honest.
What? Are you
S-
joking? All right.
Sorry. I
Yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll get into it with my number fifth guy. I've got Michael Hall, out of the Cleveland
Who?
Browns, second round pick, 22nd overall, out of Ohio State. Um,
Oh,
and he's got Shelby Harris and Dalvin Tomlinson in front of him. They're both over 30 years old. My thing with Hall is think he's a really good player, but he's just kind of more of a run stopper. And so that's inherently going to be less appealing. He's going to plug up the line, and that's going to be awesome. And he can maybe rack up some tackles. But he only had 6 sacks in 3 seasons in college. But I really just like his aggressive play style, and he's only 20. He's about to turn
oh.
21, so there's time for him to develop. And I like that the two guys in front of him are guys I'd like that have been consistent in the league, so he can learn from those guys. But they're both over 30 and on their way out.
Gotcha. Well, I have a similar, not, he's, Hall didn't make it, go Buckeyes, but he didn't make my list. But I've got Chris Jenkins
Okay.
as my number five. And it's a lot of similarities because he's playing for Cincinnati and
Mm.
he's coming off that national championship Wolverine squad.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, I just like he's slotted in right behind Sheldon Rankins, and I think he's probably going to get some good rotation. But you look at the defensive front for Cincinnati, you've already mentioned Hendrickson,
Hmm.
Sam Hubbard's pretty badass. So I think he gets in there with those guys, like some really solid vets, and
Hmm.
I mean, he just does what he needs to do and he learns. And I think he's got potential to be pretty solid. He came out in the middle of the second round, 17th pick. And I like him, man. He's about 305, little small, little lean. But yeah, 6'3", 300 pounds, a little skinny, but I think he's quick and he's gonna hit that line hard, man.
Yeah, he was another guy I was looking at. Him and Michael Hall were fighting for that fifth spot. So I'm with you there. I like the landing spot. And yeah, Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson, both on my IDP team. No, I don't have Trey Hendrickson. I have Logan Wilson and Sam Hubbard, and they've both been great. But yeah, I think he can learn a lot and contribute as well. My fourth guy, I've got Rook Orororu That's the best you're gonna get out of me. That is what I heard it pronounced as, so that's what we're going with. But the
Who?
Atlanta Falcons second round pick,
Oh,
third overall out of Clemson, third of the second round anyway. I like him a lot, and to me, it's the landing spot as well. He's behind David Onyemata, who's 31 years old on a Falcons team that needs playmakers. And this was the guy they chose after taking Michael Penix Jr. So they traded up to get him, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and he had 12 sacks in college in the interior defensive line. So I like that, and I like his play against the run as well. So I think he's kind of a do-it-all interior lineman. Um, maybe you want to go for the defensive ends more than the interior guys, but I like this guy a lot, and he's got my fourth spot.
okay. Didn't make my list, had some consideration. I'll applaud your efforts there. I went with Jazon Newton.
Okay.
So
Johnny Newton.
yeah, Johnny. He's with the Commanders, the
Hmm.
Washington Football Commanders.
Hmm.
Um, and he was one of those guys where I kind of mentioned this before, but I like to see the snap count for the defensive guys, and he had 749 snaps, which was the most out of like, anyone in this draft class. It's a pretty healthy number. He had 8 sacks in 2023.
Hmm.
And man, there's nothing really not to like about the guy. I think that fits pretty legit. If Washington can have some continuity, obviously
Hmm.
getting a big defensive head coach makes things a little easier, a little favorable for a guy coming in. So I'm pumped about that. He was the fourth pick of the second round right there after Rook. So
Hmm.
I don't know, man. You got him on your list?
Oh yeah, he's second on my list.
Oh,
I
oh,
like Johnny Newton. He is right after my tier break as well. So he's at
okay.
like on the other side of that tier. Though to me, there's two guys that I'm definitely like interested in drafting, and then there's these other guys that like I might take in deeper drafts or with later flyers or pick up after. But yeah, I love Johnny Newton. I thought he had elite hands. He was super effective as an interior pass rusher, like you said, 8 sacks. He does have to wait a bit. Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne taking up the middle there is
Right.
those are two hosses in the center, and but that's going to be awesome for him to learn from. He did have a DUI right before
Yeah.
the draft, which
Yes.
isn't great. So the character, well, maybe not character concerns, but like maybe
Decision making skills
decision
off the
making.
field.
Yeah, there we go. So that's a concern, but he's a young kid, 21.7. Yeah, I like him a lot. I had him too.
Okay.
So getting into my third guy, I had Braden Fisk, the
Okay.
Los Angeles Rams, second round pick, seventh overall pick out of Florida State, 21 sacks in college. And he's just an aggressive pass rusher. He plays defensive end, so he's got a higher chance usually at a sack. So that kind of gives him the edge over some of these interior guys. And then like we talked about it earlier, with the Los Angeles Rams, they've got a lot of playmakers there. They got Jared Verse there now, Braden Fisk, and Kobe Turner, and all these guys. And I think they're going to feed off each other. And I think
Mhm.
Fisk has a chance. He's one that I would be interested in drafting, but he is where I break the tier. So these three guys, Rook, Michael Hall, and Braden Fisk, are all in one tier
Okay.
together, kind of after Johnny Newton.
After Newton. So I
Hmm.
have Fisk as two,
Okay,
number
gotcha.
two. For all the reasons you mentioned, I think he's pretty awesome. And for some reason, I'm just like, I'm buying it, man. I'm buying whatever it is the Rams are doing. I don't think it ends with a one and done year. So I look for that landing spot to. I mean, I don't know. It feels like they're building a very nice core for the future with that team. I don't know
Hmm.
how they're doing it, but hats off to them. But my number three is Tavondre Sweat,
Okay.
who is a projected starter for the Titans. And I actually really like this guy for a number of reasons. Well, let's start with the fact that he was the heaviest human at the scouting combine at 366 pounds. But despite that, he wasn't cooking, but he ran a 5.27,
Mhm.
which I think is a respectable speed for a human that size.
Oh yeah.
Um, so he's extremely disruptive. He had the highest run defensive grade out of all the D linemen coming out in this class, but his pass rush was also in the top five. Um, Giving him one of the best defensive grades in the whole class. He only had 2 sacks, but he's out there getting with it, just knocking everyone down. I think that he's got a potential to really be like I don't know. I think he can anchor a D line and just throw off someone's run game in a huge way. He's going to be causing headaches for offenses out there. So I really like him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I he probably should have been in my top five.
What? He's
I
not
don't
in your
know.
top five?
Yeah, no, he's not. He should have been probably. I think I accidentally just kind of left him off there because he's a higher upside player than Michael Hall, but he has similar issues to me where he's like a run stuffer, just like kind of
Right.
anchoring the line, so like less of the upside of the sacks. So he probably should have been in front of Michael Hall. But I'm with you. And then yeah, he's gonna be starting for the Tennessee Titans. So
Yeah.
um good call there. So we already know who my two is. We know who your two is. So I assume we have the same one in Byron Murphy.
Yeah. Yeah. How could
Yeah.
you not?
Yeah, just an absolute talent in the middle of the line there. And he's an instant starter on a defensive line that includes Jaron Reed and Leonard Williams, just big, strong boys up front. And he can do it all, man. I think he's a run stuffer. I think he's a pass rusher. I just think he's a supreme defensive line athlete, and he's only 21.6 as well. So you're getting a guy really, really young that can develop, and I like the Seahawks landing spot as well.
Yeah, the Seahawks landing spot gets me a little that I mean, not like you needed anything else to cheer for, but I love how they're going on that defensive side of the ball in their
Hmm.
early rounds and I think it's going to pay off. It's haven't quite generated the traction I think they were hoping, but I feel like this pick just, levels up that whole squad and
Hmm.
he's going to be awesome. I mean, this exercise has probably given me the most FOMO for trading you the 3-3 because I'm not saying I don't know. I might go defense like on some of these guys, and you
Hmm.
probably will. So at that spot, and
Uh-oh.
I know, man. The lessons learned, but I got stuff on, man. Must love digs. You got to keep it alive
Oh yeah, no. I mean, Stefan's gonna outscore whoever I take at the 3-3, I'm sure.
for
Granted,
sure.
that wasn't the whole trade, but yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we got the same number one guy. But last or not but. So let's lastly get into the defensive backs here where I think safety is king. But I'm gonna start off with two back-to-back nickel guys, basically. I had a couple of honorable mentions here that I
Okay.
can get into later just to see who's on your list. But my number five it's Cooper DeJean. I liked him a lot. I think he's a super athlete. He's super young, and he was a high pick. And I like his versatility, the ability to play slot, the ability to play the nickel, the ability to tackle and not allow passes. And he's a returner as well.
Okay.
There's a chance that he could be a returner for the Philadelphia Eagles and maybe sneak in some touchdowns for you, as well as make any pick that he may get count. It's hard for these nickel guys to get into the top 10. So it is kind of risky here, but the safety class wasn't super deep this year. So I've got two nickel guys here, and Cooper DeJean is the first one.
Okay, yeah, I had to go corner on number five as well, probably for similar reasons. You only had three safeties.
Yep.
Oh well, I snuck a fourth one in on my list. But I'm putting Terry and Arnold
Hmm.
down there as my number five. I love the landing spot with Detroit, and obviously first round capital, the big need for them. It's going to be a
Hmm.
starter, and I don't know. I'm willing to roll the dice. DB seems extremely volatile. Like or no, well, I guess the opposite of volatile. It seems like it's hard for like a younger players to break into the
Hmm.
stardom roles. Like these are established guys. So I'm throwing a corner out there just to see maybe he can be the drawn bland of this rookie class.
Yeah, potentially. And I mean, he's going to be on the field immediately with Detroit.
Yeah.
They rebuilt their entire secondary this offseason, and he was a main part of it. So yeah, I like him. He's not on my top 10 just because he's a corner cover guy.
Yep.
He can tackle, but I'm trying to look for guys that are going to be more tackling. But he very well could. He has the playmaking ability to do a lot. Um, so my next guy is another nickel. It is Mike Sanderstill. Washington Commanders second round pick, 18th overall of the second round.
Oh.
The thing with him for me, I just love his aggressive, like super hard play style. 7 interceptions and 12 pass breakups in college, 78 tackles over the past 2 seasons as that nickelback. I think he just brings an aggressive play style to the nickelback position, and he's not afraid of contact. He's not afraid of getting in there and trying to get tackles. And I like the Commanders' landing spot. I think he's immediately their starting nickel on a team that, like you said, is a defensive-minded team. They took a lot of good players in this draft, I thought, and yeah, I like him. I like him to potentially be able to sneak in through the tackles that he's going to get.
All right, man. I'll allow it. That sounds pretty solid. Yeah, you can't really count out. Like Washington just feels like it's going to have a half dozen superstars on the defensive side of the ball. So you might as well just get in for it, except for maybe now their offense can hold their own. I don't
Yeah,
know. We'll
hopefully
see. We'll see
for
what
them.
happens. Um, but I went Homer on my number four.
Okay,
I went with Jaden Hicks,
I
man.
got you.
So he is obviously the safety coming out of Washington State, got picked up by the Chiefs, the fourth round with the 33rd pick. Um, but man, I like him. He's the guy that, like the boards had him ranked a lot higher. He was like the
Hmm.
fourth positional rank for ESPN, but he fell pretty significantly, and he was like the 12th safety off the board. But there's already buzz from from the workouts where he had like a pick six in practice, and he's a physical receiver,
Hmm.
or a physical safety that can cheat up to the nickel if he needs to. And they say even lines up well in like the linebacker depth, and
Hmm.
and so he's kind of all over the field. I think that the Chiefs are going to need another guy like that as Reed kind of fades. I think that he could step up. He's not a day one starter, but he's a guy that I'm a little amped about keeping an eye on. So in this, what I would call a weaker DB uh selection, I have no idea what I'm doing with IDP, but I'm putting him in there because I'm a little happy about him. Probably paid more attention to him than some of the other guys, though.
No, that's
Yeah.
fair. No, I had him as an honorable mention there. He maybe should have gotten in front of one of these nickel guys being a true safety and being on a great defensive team, as at least they were last year and projected to be probably going forward. So yeah, no, I like the pick. I had him. He was in there. I just kind of went with my other guys, me and Cooper DeJean.
Gotta do you,
Uh,
Jean.
so I have a tier break here.
Okay, same.
Uh, and now I have three safeties. And my first guy is Cole Bishop, second round
Oh.
pick for the Buffalo Bills out of Utah for the Utes. He's projected to play free safety, and there's just a massive hole for the Bills at safety with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer both leaving this offseason. He's already projected to start. He had 145 tackles in 3 seasons and only 2 seasons as a full-time starter. So that's just kind of ridiculous numbers to me. He also had 3 interceptions this past season. So I just like him a lot. I like the fit a lot. He's going to be on the field immediately. He's a bigger guy, 6'2", 206. And I just think he brings a tackling dynamic to that Buffalo Bills team that they need. And they're restarting that entire defense. And I just think he's going to immediately start producing for you.
Yeah, some of the college work was a little up and down for him, but like you're saying, I mean, he had good pick numbers. He's, getting in there, getting sacks, just knocking guys down, good tackle numbers, and the landing spot. I mean,
Hmm.
it's out of this world. I mean, like who doesn't like a Bills safety? So for that reason, I have him as number one, man.
Oh,
I'm getting
wow.
I'm getting
Okay.
pumped about him. So that's that's basically where I'm at. But tier, like huge tier break here
Hmm.
between 3 and 4.
Oh yeah,
So
massively.
I feel like meh, any one of these three guys could come out on top. I've
I
got
think so too.
cool. I've got Tyler Nubin as
Okay.
my number 3.
Okay.
Obviously, draft capital wise, he was the first safety taken
Hmm.
at the 15 spot. So he's with the Giants, coming out of the Golden Gopher farm there in
Hmm.
Minnesota.
A
And I like him. He's 23 though, so like,
little
you know,
older.
little bit older, but he's still supporting all those same kind of attributes. He doesn't have like the sack upside that I see out of Bishop, but he's still getting plenty of picks and doing everything that needs to happen. Obviously, he was doing enough to be the first of his position off the board, but I just can't get too pumped about the Giants ever for some
Yeah, that's
reason.
fair.
So I'm like looking at these 3 landing spots for these three
Hmm.
guys, and just that alone put him
Hmm.
as third for me. Because I don't know, dude. The Bills just the Bishop. I don't know, man.
I like that. No, I'm with you with the Bills, but I actually, for that exact reason, the landing spot, I have Newman at 1, because of the
Oh,
massive hole that he replaces in Xavier McKinney.
sure.
Xavier McKinney leaving, going to Green Bay. Newman's going to slide in as that strong safety, but he just produces all over the field. I mean, 4 seasons as a starter, 162 tackles. That's really good numbers.
Hmm.
And then also, what really did it for me was 13 picks in college, which is higher than any of the guys, like way higher than any of these other guys. So to me, he has the upside of both, where he's a really strong tackler. He's a really good in coverage, and it can get you a lot of pick numbers. I think maybe like you're saying, I think these three guys, any one of them could end up on top, and maybe he doesn't have as high of the ceiling because I like the like chances and the athleticism for the guy we're gonna get into number 2 here. But I just think like there's no way to me that Newman isn't like a solid starter in the NFL. And just with the massive hole and that Giants team that doesn't have a lot on defense anyway,
No.
I think he's just an instant starter that is just gonna. They need him to be good if their defense is gonna be anything, and I think he is good. And so, I think he edges these other two guys out just a little bit to me. But that isn't even indicative of where I'd go in the draft necessarily.
Yeah, well, we all know where you're going in the draft, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I'll give you this last guy, really. So, is this is your guy to talk about?
Yeah, so number 2, it sounds like we have the same guy in Javon Bullard, Green Bay Packers second round pick, or Javon Bullard. 5'11", 198, a little just wrecking ball tank. He hits people so fucking hard. It's so fun to watch. 21 years old. He's gonna play free safety, and he's starting. He's gonna be the starting free safety in the Packers defense. The new defensive coordinator is constantly talking about attacking, just like I said when we got into Edrin Cooper, and I think Bullard is the prime example of what they want to do with him. 92 tackles this past 2 seasons as a starter. That's awesome. 4 interceptions, 2 in each season. But it's really going to be his dominance in the running game, and then his ability to rush the passer as well. The ways they're going to want to attack with him are what's really exciting to me about him. And I think he has tremendous upside. To me, he might have like the most upside of these guys in terms of fantasy production. But I like him a lot, and he's definitely a target for me in the draft for sure.
Really feels like you can't go wrong with these three guys, man.
I agree.
I, they're pretty incredible. And I mean the draft capital, they're all packed in the same like 13,
Hmm.
14 picks. So everyone feels the same way. It is kind of cool to see, yeah, the tackle numbers. I got pumped about Bishop and those tackling numbers and just the Buffalo fit, just because of how aggressive the safety is
Hmm.
used in that defense. But any way you slice it, dude, any of these three guys, just
Yeah.
don't be caught looking for the fourth safety if that's or the fourth DB in this draft if that's a need for you.
Yeah, if you need a DB, you have to go and get one of these guys. Maybe DBs aren't projected to usually go before the third, but I think if you need a safety or you need a defensive back, you should really try to get one of these guys. And I'd be willing to spend a third round pick on any of them, to be honest, like whichever
Yeah.
one kind of lands with me. But yeah, I'm with you. It's these three guys or nothing in this draft to me. I
Heck
do
yeah.
have actually one more. I
Oh,
say that I do
oh,
have one
oh,
honorable
oh.
mention, and
Okay.
I may butcher his first name. Dadrion Taylor Dimerson, the Arizona Cardinals pick. But he's going to be
Okay.
behind Buda Baker right now. But I
Mm,
think that's a sneaky, like, kind of decent landing spot that we've heard trade rumors on Baker for a while now. He's getting up there in age. And I like that landing spot. And so he was kind of an honorable mention with Hicks to me. But other than that,
mm.
still, I'm not even wanting to get him. He's somebody I might pick up, you know, if training camp whispers are good and I needed somebody off the waiver, you know. So to me, it's still these three guys are bust in Bishop,
Heck yeah.
Bullard, and Newman. But there you have it.
Boom, baby.
There was our attempt at a deep dive into IDP exploration. Hopefully, I want to. We can kind of keep working this in a little bit. It's a little more niche, so maybe not a lot of you do it, but we are here for you. We are on this journey, so we're going to be kind of chronicling how it goes for us. So hopefully you'll join us, and maybe it'll spark your interest in IDP leagues because they're pretty fun. Like the swings you can get from players on the same team. I remember a time getting Logan Wilson with a pick, and then the next play was a Jamar Chase touchdown. It was a completely swung a
Oh,
game for me, and
wow.
I won, and it was awesome. Yeah,
I
it's
can't,
such a cool
yeah.
feeling.
Oh, you got me pumped now, man.
So, so yeah, it's pretty exciting. So, but until then, next week we are going to hit you with, sorry, I set you up for failure there. Next week we're going to hit you with our draft reviews of this IDP league that we're discussing and our for the belt draft. So we're going to
Mhm.
kind of cover both those leagues and where guys went, talk about our teams, talk about interesting picks and all of that. But until then, we've been Rough Draft Research. You've been the audience, and we'll see you next time.
Terry McLaurin for president. We're out.
I took a lease out